Chapter 5. The Avenging Angels. All night they traveled through narrow mountain passes and over treacherous, rock-strewn paths. Several times they lost their way, but Jefferson Hope's intimate knowledge of the mountains allowed them to find the trail again. When morning broke, they were surrounded by a scene of savage beauty. Snow-capped peaks loomed in every direction. The rocky cliffs were so steep that the pine trees seemed to hang suspended over their heads, as if a single gust of wind would send them crashing down. This fear was not unfounded. The valley floor was littered with fallen trees and boulders. As they passed, a massive rock thundered down, its roar echoing through the silent gorge and startling the exhausted horses into a gallop. As the sun rose, the mountain peaks lit up one by one like lamps at a festival. This magnificent sight gave the fugitives fresh energy. They halted at a mountain stream to water the horses and eat a quick breakfast. Lucy and her father wanted to rest longer, but Hope was relentless. "They will be on our trail by now," he warned. "Everything depends on speed. Once we are safe in Carson City, we can rest for the rest of our lives." By evening, they calculated they were 30 miles away from their enemies. They spent the night huddled for warmth under a towering cliff. Before daybreak, they were moving again. Having seen no sign of pursuit, Hope began to believe they had escaped the reach of the terrible organization. He did not know how long that iron grasp could reach, or how soon it would close around them. By the middle of the second day, their food supplies began to fail. This didn't worry the hunter, as he knew there was game in the mountains. He found a sheltered spot, built a fire for Lucy and John, and set out with his rifle. Looking back, he saw the old man and the girl crouching over the flames, with the animals standing behind them. Then, the rocks hid them from view. After searching for a few hours, Hope spotted a bighorn sheep on a high ledge. He took a steady aim and fired. The animal fell into the valley below. Because it was too heavy to carry whole, he cut away a haunch and part of the flank. With the meat over his shoulder, he hurried back as evening approached. However, in his excitement, he had wandered too far. The gorges all looked identical. He took one wrong turn after another, and darkness fell before he found a familiar path. Exhausted and burdened by the meat, he struggled on, driven by the thought of providing for Lucy. He finally reached the mouth of the defile where he had left them. He had been gone 5 hours. To signal his arrival, he gave a loud "Hallo!" There was no answer, only the echo of his own voice. He shouted again. Silence. A nameless dread took hold of him, and he ran forward, dropping the meat in his panic. He reached the campsite. The fire was a pile of glowing ashes, but it hadn't been tended for hours. The horses, the old man, and the girl, all were gone. A sudden and terrible disaster had occurred in his absence. Stunned, Hope had to lean on his rifle to keep from falling, but he quickly recovered. He used a piece of wood to light a torch and examined the ground. It was covered with hoof prints. A large party of riders had overtaken them and then turned back toward Salt Lake City. Had they taken both Lucy and John? Then his eye caught something that made his blood run cold. Nearby was a heap of fresh, reddish soil. A stick had been planted in it, with a piece of paper. John Ferrier, formerly of Salt Lake City. Died August 4th, 1860. The sturdy old man was dead. Hope looked for a second grave, but found none. Lucy had been taken back to fulfill her fate in a forced marriage. Realizing his powerlessness, Hope wished he were lying in the grave with the old farmer. But his despair quickly turned to a burning desire for revenge. He possessed an indomitable patience and a capacity for hatred that he had learned from the Indians. Standing by the cold fire, he decided that his life would now be dedicated to one goal: total retribution. For 5 days, he struggled back through the mountains on foot. On the 6th day, he reached Eagle Canyon and looked down at Salt Lake City. He saw flags and signs of celebration. He encountered a Mormon named Cowper, who had once been his friend. "I am Jefferson Hope," he said. "Do you remember me?" Cowper was shocked. It was hard to recognize the ragged, wild-eyed wanderer. "You're mad to come here," Cowper whispered. "The Holy Four have a warrant for your arrest." "I don't care about their warrants," Hope said. "What has become of Lucy Ferrier?" "She was married yesterday to young Drebber," Cowper replied. "Those flags are for the wedding." There was a dispute between Drebber and Stangerson over who would have her. Stangerson had shot her father, which gave him a claim, but Drebber's family was more powerful. The prophet gave her to Drebber. Hope turned white. "Married?" "Yesterday, but she won't be with him long. I saw death in her face. She looks like a ghost." Hope's face became like marble. He slung his rifle over his shoulder and vanished back into the mountains. Cowper's prediction came true. Whether from the shock of her father's death or the horror of her marriage, Lucy pined away and died within a month. Her husband, Drebber, who had married her only for her father's property, didn't care. However, on the night before her burial, a strange event occurred. As the other wives watched over her body, a savage, tattered man burst into the room. He walked to the body, kissed Lucy's cold forehead, and snatched the wedding ring from her finger. "She shall not be buried with that!" he cried, and vanished before anyone could stop him. For months, Hope haunted the mountains like a ghost. He fired a shot through Stangerson's window and nearly crushed Drebber with a falling boulder. The two Mormons lived in constant fear, never going out alone. Eventually, the attempts stopped, and they hoped Hope was dead. In reality, Hope had realized that his health was failing due to exposure and lack of food. He returned to the Nevada mines to recover his strength and save money for a long-term revenge. It took him 5 years to amass the funds, but his hatred never cooled. When he finally returned to Salt Lake City, he found that Drebber and Stangerson had left the Mormon church and fled to the east. Hope became a human bloodhound. He tracked them across America for years. His hair turned gray, but his mind remained focused on one thing. Finally, he spotted them in Cleveland, Ohio. Drebber recognized him and had him arrested on false charges. By the time Hope was released from jail, they had fled to Europe. He followed them to St. Petersburg, then Paris, then Copenhagen. Finally, he tracked them to London. As for what happened there, we return to the account recorded in Dr. Watson's journal.